and Mac and Chris Franklin from NJ.com. Good enough to jump in as he does after Eagle games all year long. At what point yesterday did you know? All right, this game's over. The Eagles going to the Super Bowl, Mr. Franklin.
It probably was just before halftime when they scored that second touchdown. It was up and made it 21-7. I was like, you know what?
Wow,
this
that
is
was late, Chris. That's late.
yeah. I always see you never know with the way teams come back. The weirdest things happen, weird fumbles, refs, what have you. You never know what happens. So I'm like, all right. Once that happens, I'm like, all right, I feel pretty good about. I can start writing the gamer.
Yeah, I spent way too much time watching Brock Purdy on the sidelines, probably too much time because it was Brock Purdy. I think the Eagles were winning in the game anyway, but when it became clear he wasn't coming back, I mean, Josh Johnson, nice story. I put up his career transaction history, Chris. 23 transactions at 50. Not only the NFL, I think it's 14, 15 teams, whatever, but you got the Sacramento Mountain Lions on. He's played in every league, the Alliance of American Football, the XFL. I think he was in the old, what was it, United Football League? That might have been.
Oh yeah, the old UFL, like four teams in there. That used to be like some weird channel as well. You know what they should do? They should give every team, just to raise money for charity, whatever. Every team should sign up for a one-day contract, so you can say he's the first player ever to play with all 30 teams. That would be great.
I wonder if Josh has a jersey. You remember that famous Josh McCown? He's got a bunch of daughters, and them and their friends were wearing all the Josh McCown jerseys. With Josh Johnson, you need like I don't know, you didn't need like an infantry division to wear all the jerseys he's had in his career. It's amazing. But yeah, bad situation for the 49ers. But guess what? The Eagles created this situation. So I've been throwing this out. You've heard it all year, Chris. The Eagles played nobody, blah, blah, blah. I maintain, this is the best team I've ever covered. And I'm older than you. This is the best team I've ever covered. And B, it's not that they played nobodies. They turned somebodies into nobodies.
I have to say this is the best team I've ever covered because I've only been on the beat for 3 years. And 2020 was bad, and 2021 was
that's
car loss.
That's an easy one.
That was the best one. But when I look at it, I think a lot of times when you look at it, like I know you had the AFC South on your schedule, and that division was just a train wreck, dumpster fire this year. But you play what it is, and this conference, it was a down year, but there still were a lot of good teams on that schedule when you look at it. And how many times did you hear people talking about this 49ers team? How many times you see heading into this game, those 49ers are going to be the ones that the Eagles face because they haven't beaten anybody. And then the narrative suddenly shifts to like this morning, well, the Niners are just bad. They didn't wear ready. They have Purdy and everything else. And that defense was supposed to be the next coming of the 85 Bears. And you look at it, and I think overall, when you look at the other teams on the schedule, I thought the Eagles did a decent job. And I understand sometimes some plays need to shift because of the actual matchup. They want to make things interesting, but to me, that schedule thing, you can't. To me, you couldn't use it. I think, especially after. By the way,
real quick before you jump in, Jody, that defense was good. I mean, Fred Warner looked phenomenal early. He had the stinger, and then he came back. You could see, this guy can play. And Dre Greenlaw, only after they got frustrated. It was 7-7 when McCaffrey had that great run. They were playing well defensively. I thought that defense was as advertised. And then they had that drive after the McCaffrey. It was that long, whatever it was, 14, 15 play drive. They had 3 defensive penalties on that drive. That's what disappointed me the most about. We talk about D'Amico Ryans. Looks like he's going to get the Houston job over Jonathan Gannon. So sorry, Eagles fans, but JG's going to be back. And I say that facetiously because he's done a phenomenal job. They were undisciplined, man. That's what disappointed me. But they're talented on the defensive side.
Right, but doesn't that count too?
Yeah.
You judged the entire game. They had sequences where they looked like the best defense in football. I still believe they're the best tackling defense in football, but How does D'Amico Ryans let them come into that game and be as unfocused as they were?
Well, I'm sure D'Amico wasn't saying, "Hey, go be an idiot." I mean,
if you give them credit for all the plays they make, you got to hold them accountable for all the mistakes they make. Right?
I'm not one. I realize, and Chris knows. JG says it all the time. I'm not the one on the field. Those guys got to go out there and execute. I mean, you teach them. I'm sure. I know D'Amico from when he was here. Really high football IQ. I'm sure I'm sure he teaches them correctly, but when you're playing a good team, sometimes you lose it and you get frustrated. I think that's kind of what happened to the 49ers defense. Chris?
And I think overall, when you look at, I think it also ultimately goes to the head coach too. Because if anything, when you started to see, if you started going, like when they started getting those penalties or anything, if I'm Shanahan, I'm going over and talk to them real quick and go, you know what? What's going on here? And especially when you start seeing some of the pushing and shoving and the way, because the refs are always going to go in and go, they're going to have their ways, or they usually warn the coaches too, like next time someone such this or somebody does that, we're going to flag you. I don't know if that happened. To be fair, I don't know if that happened to if they said it to either side, but I put that on Shanahan too. Shanahan had to go calm us down, even if during one of the breaks he gathered your team together, say, listen, we're not playing them the focus ball, and you were still in that game for periods of time, a long period of time. And then when it unraveled, and it was bad. It was bad overall.
I know we talked about it here on Birds 365 last week, the coaching matchup. Entire staff against entire staff. 49ers staff against Eagles staff, pretty damn close. Oh, it didn't play that way. The Eagles staff well outcoached the 49ers yesterday. So instead of just beating the snot out of the 49ers staff, which we can, let's give credit to the Eagles staff, which had a great game plan in place, specifically on the defense with Jonathan Gannon, who after the game on the field said to a reporter, I'm not going anywhere. I'm staying here in Philadelphia. Was he just caught up in the moment, or does he know something that maybe everybody else doesn't know?
I think it was one of those things where they said D'Amico, he probably knows D'Amico has the job. I think it's just doing too many rumblings, and even members like you start seeing the tweets of, well, if Marquez Manuel is available, it was not like when you see even as Carolina. But I think overall, I think when you start hearing leaks about who's going to join the staff, it's pretty much decided at that point. So yeah, he was like, well,
all right. So let me hop in. Let me hop in and ask this question to both you guys. If that's the case, if you're the owner of the Houston Texans, and yesterday happened, the two guys who you're debating about are facing each other, both very talented rosters. You just go by the stats, 49ers slight edge for the regular season. And one coach and one team blatantly outplayed the other on their side of the football. Why do you hire the lesser guy? How do you hire D'Amico Ryans rather than Jonathan Gannon after watching yesterday's game if you're the owner of the Houston Texans?
I don't know. And when you look at the final regular season stats, there was only 1 yard separating both. I would have said whoever's the one.
0.9 yards
separating. So you're looking like, okay, I would have made that to the fact of whoever wins gets the job. I know it's tough because I know you got the Senior Bowl and all that other stuff coming up, but still, you need. I don't get that one, but who knows? Maybe they go, hey, something came up. D'Amico. Why is he left on red now?
I'll defend Houston on one carry. It's not about one game. I mean, it's about a larger sample size. But I will say, from what I heard, maybe we can get John McMullen on talk about Houston in the offseason. But, it was a McNair decision. They wanted D'Amico. Remember, D'Amico has a history with that organization. He was a tremendous player down there before he came here. And the GM wanted Jonathan Gannon, Nick Caserio. They have a history together, and the owner wins. So, I think it had more to do with D'Amico's history with Houston, and sometimes owners make bad decisions. I don't know. I think D'Amico's a good coach too. I don't think you could have went wrong either way, but I'm not going to say he's a bad coach because San Francisco got frustrated. They did get frustrated. It's disappointing. But I mean, I can't say, all right, the winner of this game is going to be head coach. I think you're doing a disservice in that situation. And I'm the biggest Jonathan Gannon fan in the world. I would have hired Gannon, but what do I know?
By the way, just so I'm on the record, I think McNair screwed up, not because he chose D'Amico. If he does chooses D'Amico Ryans over Jonathan Gannon, I would have hired Shane Steichen because they need an offensive coach in the worst way. They don't need another defensive coach. They continue to hire defensive coach, and they can't get out of their own damn way. That's where he made the mistake, not in who he chose as the new defensive head coach of the.
The good news for the Eagles, there's still room to go. It looks like they're going to be able to keep this coaching staff together, which is amazing. Amazing, Chris Franklin. What's going on with the stupidity of this league?
I think the quarter. I still think there's a guy like a Patullo could become an offensive coordinator somewhere. I would be surprised if Denard gets at least another interview. I thought he would be a defensive coordinator by now. I really thought, but it's going to be somebody who's you don't see often, but somebody who's going to be given a shot. I still think Brian Johnson would be a good candidate to be an OC somewhere. But when you look at you got your coordinators, a team that's finished in the top 5 on both sides, and neither of them get a job. I'm like, it's crazy.
Yeah. Maybe the patience is a problem because, sometimes these bad organizations don't want to wait till after the Super Bowl. That, as you go longer, that can play into it. But we got a lot of time to talk about offseason stuff. The Eagles got a game on the horizon, the Andy Reid Bowl, Chris Franklin, the Kelsey Bowl, the New Heights Podcast Bowl. A lot of narratives in this game. Clearly, with Patrick Mahomes, even Patrick Mahomes on a high ankle sprain is probably the Eagles' most difficult test. But I look at these two teams and say the Eagles are the more talented team than Kansas City. Agree or disagree?
I think there's a slight edge offensively when you look at proven offensive starters, especially on the edge skill position wise. I think they're about even. The thing about Mahomes that worries me, even on a hobbled ankle, is he can throw for so many arm slots and get that ball out quickly with a snap of the wrist that it could be like you look at that pass rush, you're like, Hassan, I think the Eagles can get a lot of pressure on him, but it's going to be a matter of with Mahomes, even if he should be a little bit healthier after when they finally see him, getting that ball out quickly and in a short game to guys like Moore, Pachenko, and everything else, and especially Kelsey in the middle of the field. So that has
Kelsey's got a big test with Chris Jones. That guy can play. But you know what? I say this every time. I said it with Nick Bosa. I got to stop saying the Eagles are going to have issues with deep. They just don't. They just don't. Chris Jones looks unbelievable against everybody else. He looked unbelievable against Kansas City again. Jason Kelsey's going to block him. I said the same thing about Dexter Lawrence. Dexter Lawrence wrecked the Minnesota game, the wild card game. I didn't even know he was on the field against the Eagles. This offensive line is something else. I think it starts there with the Eagles. With all due respect to Jalen Hurts, Jonathan Gannon, and the defense, this offensive line is ridiculous.
Yeah, and it all goes back to Stoutland. I thought it was pretty interesting. When I was talking to most of the guys in the locker room last night, there's even a moment where you saw Brandon Graham. He was in the middle of talking to us, and then he saw Stout walking by, and he stopped all of us and started to go, hey, like Stout, because he didn't see it, and the appreciation he had, like hugging him, and thanking him. When I was talking to Mailata, when you hear Lane talk, they all really, really value not only the type of player, that fiery, grizzled offensive line coach, but what he does setting up this offensive protections in that run game. And you can see it's apparent. The Eagles, if somebody ever tries to throw a bunch of money toward him, Lurie has to throw whatever he can to keep it, because that's going to be a successful offense.
We thought it was going back to Alabama. Who is that college football reporter who gets everything?
Ford.
Anyway, I'll try to think of his name. He reported he was going back to Alabama when Doug got fired. And the Eagles said, no. So they already upped the ante. He's one of the highest paid assistant coaches in the NFL, and deservedly so.
Let me ask you guys, since you're down there all the time,
Friedman,
and you know,
by the way,
do you know if any team has ever approached him to be an offensive coordinator? Does Stoutland even want that?
Doesn't want to do it.
He just wants to stick with his Stoutland University offensive line, and that's enough for him.
3 or 4 years ago, I talked to him about that because, it's usual that people have that sort of, want to move forward in their careers. And Jeff, I think, is 60 now, somewhere around that age. And he was an interim head coach, where I'm trying to look it up, Miami. He was the interim head coach in 2010. And he kind of, said he didn't like it. He didn't like it. And he started coaching offensive line, and he just loved it. He loved it. And he said he doesn't want to do anything else. Now, he's also the run game coordinator. So he does have other avenues. But, yeah, he's one of those guys. Jim Johnson was that way. He didn't want to become a head coach. He was just happy. It's very rare, but occasionally it happens. And evidently, that's his feeling. And, I think, honestly, more assistant coaches should think that way, but then again, a lot of it is the ambition and the money, because obviously if you're a head coach, you get paid much more. So as guys get paid more, maybe if they value assistant coaches more, maybe it would be more like that.
Well, you can't, I don't think you can question and or knock anybody for wanting to advance their career. You just have to kind of shrug your shoulders and go, hey, Eagles are lucky. They've got the best offensive line coach, certainly in football now, maybe one of the best of all time. And he's good with being an offensive line coach. The Eagles just have to smile and grin and say, thank you. And let us keep Stoutland University open. Let's fund that university and make sure we keep it open for years to come. All right, Andy Reid versus the Eagles this week. There's going to be a lot of different ways this will be broken down and looked at and the like. The relationship between Andy Reid and Jeff Lurie seemed to be okay even when they parted ways and Andy was told, yeah, we're going to go in a different direction. They've certainly commented on each other. I'm sure they've talked to each other, not necessarily on the record or in front of cameras. How does the Lurie-Reid relationship play this week leading up to the Super Bowl, Chris?
I can see it. It'll still be the same thing. It'll be one of those friendlies. Hey, guys, we hope you do well. I'm glad to see you here. The behind the scenes. All right, we got to beat them. We just want that Lombardi Trophy one of those ways. So they still talk here and there. I wouldn't be surprised when it comes to the league meetings, stuff like that.
Every time they're looking for a coach, they go, "Oh, we can't get this guy. We can't. Let's see what Andy thinks."
Yeah, exactly. Hey, especially that's Doug Peterson going here. Hey, you should really take a look at that. Oh yeah, we'll do it. Thanks. And then look what happens. So yeah, I think they're going to take it really lightly. It's that friendly. It's be a friendly rivalry coming up this week, and yeah, it's going to be fun to watch. But yeah, it's behind closed doors. We got to beat this guy. We need to prove that we're right on this one.
Yeah, it is, and I often point out, and I think for whatever reason, there are not a lot, but there are certain fans that kind of disrespect Andy because he never was able to win a Super Bowl here. But boy, man, when you talk about the Eagles from when the day he got here to right now, kind of take out the Chip Kelly era, because that was their one mistake. Everything they do is based on Andy Reid. Their whole foundation, the whole way they run their organization, if fans don't realize this, is directly related to what Andy Reid brought to this organization. So in a lot of ways, he as I said, he is that foundation of their success, and they know it. By the way, Jeffrey knows it, Howie knows it, and they've taken it and they've run with it. And you've seen what he's done in Kansas City. He's been there 10 years now. Amazing. He was here for 14 years. 10 years. And get this, I mentioned this to Les Bowen earlier, Chris. You probably know this, but I'll throw it out there. If he wins the Super Bowl, he's already the all-time winningest coach in Eagles history. He will tie and become the all-time winningest coach in Kansas City history. So many interesting storylines in this Super Bowl. And again, I bring up the Kelseys and everything else. This is a dream Super Bowl. Was this a conspiracy that the NFL wanted to get us here?
I was trying to think of the sound bites that happened because if you had in a way, I kind of wanted to see Burrow versus Hurts. Just you got the couple of the new school quarterbacks that have come up in the last
Patrick's
couple
still
of years.
pretty young. It's just he's good.
He's been around so long now. And he's been so good. It's like, all right, cool.
Oh no! In case you didn't see, this is the youngest matchup of two quarterbacks ever in the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
certainly this past week, the championship game with Purdy on one side and Hurts on the other. It was easily the youngest quarterback matchup in a championship game. Still, even though Mahomes seems like he's been around for a while, this is the youngest quarterback matchup in the history of the Super Bowl.
Yeah, he's only 27 years old. And obviously, I mean, all the deep playoff runs. What are they at? 5 consecutive championship games? Yeah, he's amazing. He's amazing. And even on one leg, he's got, I don't know if I ever told you guys this story, but freezing cold takes. I got freezing cold taked about my pre-draft. I probably told you, Jody. I don't know if I told you, Chris. For my Patrick Mahomes, I said he's a mechanical mess. I was watching film. I maintain I'm right. He's a mechanical mess. He is the equivalent. I've always compared him to Steph Curry in basketball. Like that's
good. Yeah.
If you're a youth basketball coach, and you know this, Jody, you were a youth, you played basketball. You're not teaching your kids to play like Steph Curry. Right. You're not teaching your kids to pull up from 30 feet and good shot. No, there's one guy in the world that can play like Steph Curry. There's one guy in the world. You talked about all the arm angles and all the nuttiness and the no look pass. Who thought no look passes? Yeah, that's good mechanics. Nobody can do it but Patrick Mahomes.
Right. And when you're a talent evaluator, you can't worry about what kind of influence he's going to have on a younger player, that he's going to lead him astray because he does it differently. You just have to evaluate, how does he make the play? He does it differently. He does it against the norm. It doesn't matter. As long as he makes the play, that's all that matters. And that's what Patrick Mahomes is doing for 5 years in the National Football League since he got in.
He's the best quarterback in football. I was just looking it up. So he's 12 wins, 11 wins, 14 wins, 12 wins, 14 wins. This will be his second MVP. All the championship games, got a chance at the second Super Bowl. All that said, Chris Franklin, it's not Patrick Mahomes against Jalen Hurts. It's the Kansas City Chiefs against the Philadelphia Eagles. I think the Eagles have the deeper, more well-rounded team. Am I incorrect?
It's just about right. And it feels like it's an eerily similar script that we're heading into, and like we did 5 years ago. And the fact that I can see right now the night before Super Bowl, when they have the big NFL honors and MVPs announced, and we find out it's Patrick Mahomes over Jalen Hurts, and then all the accolades are going to go to the Chiefs, and everybody's talking Chiefs. And I think I think the Eagles might get lost in that a little bit too. And then when you talk to a couple of guys, they took that as disrespectful. Like a lot of people talking about the vaunted Chiefs offense, where people are going to go, you're going to hear it. Jalen Hurts, he didn't put up the big passing numbers or anything like that.
He only threw for what yesterday, Chris?
20 something.
121. Oh, he can't. Yeah.
And it's going to go to the fact where they're going to use that. They're going to slip that, use that as motivation, and I think you're going to see that little fire. They come out a little bit strong coming out there. So they're pretty evenly matched, but I think it's going to be the little tangible things like that I think that they're going to be interesting to watch and see how they play.
All right, let me put the two quarterbacks aside for a second, Chris, with my last question. There are 3 guys on the Philadelphia Eagles that were procured while Andy Reid was here. And that would be Jason Kelce, Brandon Graham, Fletcher Cox. Still here after all these years of Andy being the guy to go out and put him in Eagle green. Of those 3 guys, which one is the key to keeping the Eagles on task? I think one of the things that the Eagles have done better than any other football team in the National Football League this year, and Sirianni gets a lot of credit for it, for me is they have not looked ahead. They've stayed in the moment. They've only worried about the next game each and every single week. There's only one more game, so they don't even have to worry about looking past anything this week. So it's only one game. But which of their Andy Reid acquired veteran guys is the key guy in the locker room leading up to the Super Bowl?
I think, a lot of it's going to be, I think a lot of people say Jason Kelce when you look at just the offensive line, but I think it's going to be Brandon Graham. I think you need somebody to get it a little nastiness. I think you need somebody to get that little edge. Somebody, how about you hope he doesn't bring it in the coin toss like he did.
Oh, he's going to bring it in the coin toss. By the way, Kelce was great talking about the coin toss last week.
It was great. That was funny. Yeah. That was funny. You don't have to go against him. But yeah, I think you need it. I think you need a little bit like that. I think you need to build that defensive line to a fervor and start to get them really, really amped up. Starting to get them feel like, hey, you know what? Okay, we're going to go after him. We're going to keep on coming after him relentlessly with 2 lines to keep it away. So I look at that as being like, you know what? Since you only have one game you have to look forward to, yeah, having Brandon Graham start to go off and let that go, especially to the younger guys. Yeah, I think that's the guy I'm looking toward.
All right, last one from me at C Franklin News. Make sure you follow Chris on Twitter, NJ.com. He's everywhere. I mean, Lehigh Valley Live, Times of Trenton, South Jersey Times. You can read them everywhere in the Delaware Valley. Kenny Gainwell. A lot of garbage time, but man, a lot of production. What do I make of it? Like, they blew out the Giants and he's running all over the place in the second half. They blew out the 49ers, but he's really effective. And he looks like he's got a lot of juice. He looks like, he didn't play much this year. It was a little bit disappointing. All of a sudden, he's showing up in the postseason. Garbage time, or should I make something of it?
I think you should make something of it, because I look at this 3-pronged rushing attack, and you see the way that it's effective now. He's making it more effective, in my opinion, because you don't have to give Sanders as many snaps as you have to. You can allow him to still be fresher and as impactful as you give beforehand. Same with Boston Scott. And I think the biggest key that I've seen from Gainwell is he's looked a little bit more patient when he's running through those holes. Beforehand, he used to run like a bat out of hell, going, okay, I'm going to go right where Kelce and Dickerson are going. I'm just going to run that way and then into a line. He didn't let those holes develop. And now you see the patience. To me, I see the patience. And that's going along with his ability to catch the ball at the backfield. Now you're starting to see the Gainwell that we thought we'd see him develop into, and the role that we thought he should develop, and he's becoming effective in that. So I think it's just it comes with the experience a little bit, and the patience, and being on the sideline, seeing how this offense can operate. If you just wait just a couple seconds and let things develop.
Chris Franklin, you have been very good to us all season long, and even though next Monday it won't be after an Eagle game, it'll be leading up to the Super Bowl. Can we count on you to join us again next Monday?
He might be traveling at that point. I don't know. We'll see.
I'll be in Arizona. I'll be in there. Yeah, I'm leaving. I'll be in Arizona at the time. So yeah, depending on that one too. I'll keep the arm warm. I'll be in the bullpen ready to go. But I'll be ready to go.
If you can't, you're going to blame it on the elbow, like Brock Purdy. Hey, I can't throw, coach. I'll go in. I'll play, but I just can't throw.
I couldn't feel my takes were taking me. I couldn't feel where they're going, so I just had to hand the ball off to you guys from here.
If we can, we'd love to punch up next Monday. If you're in transit and/or out in Arizona already, we'll understand that. Thank you very much, buddy, and know you will be back on Birds 365 sometime soon, maybe as early as next Monday. Thanks, bud.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Have a good one now.
Chris Franklin, NJ.com, here with us on Birds 365. All right. 2 things for you guys still streaming in with us. Thank you very much. Number 1, don't go anywhere because we got to come back and put a bow on the show. And number 2, go ahead, hit that like button one more time before you get out of Dodge today. Mac and Mac coming.